What is up? This is your LA in a minute. When I was a kid, there was something I looked forward to every Friday morning with my dad. Winchell's Donuts. Seemed like they were everywhere because there were. There were more than 1,000 locations of the donut franchise that started right here in Los Angeles. And even though you could still find a few today, there aren't that many left. So what happened to Winchell's? Let's get into it. The first Winchell's Donut House was opened October 8th, 1948 in Temple City. It was opened by Vern Mitchell, who had an entrepreneurial spirit and had recently closed two businesses, one selling used cars and the other selling jukeboxes. Winchell originally planned Winchell's to be a hamburger stand, but a drive-in hamburger stand opened across the street, so he decided to pivot and open a coffee and donut stand instead. A cup of coffee cost a dime and a donut cost a nickel, and customers could look through the window to watch the donuts being made, a novel concept at the time. The concept was successful, so Winchell opened two new restaurants, one in Huntington Park and one in Southgate. Soon Winchell's opened up the Winchell's Dozen, which was actually 14 dozens, and they opened a new location in Redondo Beach, which featured a coffee room with seats and tables, and that was the match that lit Winchell's flame. By 1961, Winchell's was opening 30 to 40 new locations a year, expanding out of state into Arizona and Colorado. By 1968, Winchell's had 255 locations and merged with Denny's. Vern Winchell was considered a visionary, so he stayed on to manage the donut chain and was also named chairman and CEO of Denny's. Under Winchell's leadership, both chains expanded dramatically, and Winchell's expanded to more than 1,000 locations by the middle of the 1970s. Stores were opened in Japan, Spain, Korea, Holland, Guam, and revenue reached more than $200 million a year. That's a lot of donuts. 1980 marked the first sign of trouble as Winchell's ended up closing 20% of their stores due to unprofitability, and Vern Winchell left the company. By 1985, Winchell's was down to 740 locations, and even though they were still the biggest donut shop in California, they were losing national market share to competitors like Dunkin' Donuts. By 1989, Denny's sold many of the remaining locations to Pizza Hut. In the early 1990s, faced with dire straits, Winchell's explored new concepts, including Winchell's and More, which offered Dannon frozen yogurt and various types of salad and sandwiches. But the comeback was short-lived as new competitors continued to enter the scene. In 2000, Vern Winchell passed away at the age of 87. And though Winchell's was reinvigorated when they offered a warm and fresh guarantee between 6 and 9 a.m., Yum Yum Donuts bought the remaining 178 Winchell's, converting most of them to Yum Yum Donuts. So Winchell's is still around with 73 locations, but don't be fooled by the imitators. So Winchell's Donuts is still around. You just gotta look a little bit harder to find a location by you. And they're still delicious, and it started right here in Los Angeles. All right, LA, it's been a minute.